put a comment in.
Okay.
Oh, it looks like we're live now. All right, everybody. Well, welcome to Coffee with Monta on Friday. We started this thing, I think, the third week of March, and we're super excited and to be able to, catch up with other folks in the community for 30 minutes every Friday morning, and more importantly, really highlight the work our other community partners are doing and what impacts they have in our community. So this morning, I have Jason Skipton from Growing Gardens on, so I'm super excited. Good morning, Jason.
How you doing today? Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I think we have a lot of our staff have actually volunteered, used their volunteers days at Growing Gardens. And I believe you guys helped us put a garden in one of our intensive outpatient treatment homes as well. And so super excited to learn about all the work you guys are doing over there. Also the work that you all are doing in prisons that I heard about. And so why don't you just to kick us off, why don't you tell us a little bit about it? What is Growing Gardens?
Yeah, no, and like the interesting thing too is like I'll give you like the historical context, like what have we done, I'd say pre-COVID-19, and then what are we doing now in response with COVID-19. So historically, we've been an organization, we're a nonprofit based in Portland, Oregon, that's been around almost 25 years. We're about to celebrate our 25th anniversary coming up next year.
Wow.
Really, so the roots for our organization is called the Home Gardens Program. So it's, Monta, like you were talking about, it's probably the most interaction that some of your team has had with our programs as well. It's really this idea of getting low-income families access to healthy food right now, like right in their backyards. So the idea is that how to reduce as many barriers as possible to healthy food access. So we've been building gardens in the backyard, side yards, patios, and the gardens really are participant specific. So they tell us what they want. We're not just kind of dropping in a cookie cutter garden and say, oh, this is all we have. But we're really working with each family on saying, what do you need right now? What space do you need? Do you have access to land that you can tear up? Do you not? Do you need a container garden? So really that idea is providing the garden and then the educational support. And we do that for 3 years. So the Home Gardens program is a 3-year program. So anyone who enrolls into our program, we then support for a minimum of 3 years. And that's with the garden, the design, the seeds, the soil, education, everything else that's kind of wrapped around that is free of charge. I'll talk maybe a little bit more about kind of like our decentralized model. We decentralized about 5 years ago. And during this time right now of COVID-19, it's been a huge asset to have that decentralized model. But another program that we have is called Youth Grow, where we're working in 10 schools. 9 of them are elementaries. 1 is a high school. And we're basically doing garden-based education and connecting science, math, STEAM, and STEM education into the garden. We co-teach with every grade and every teacher that we work with in those schools. We're in 4 different districts, and it's really about getting kids outside, getting them engaged, hands-on learning, but then also eating and enjoying healthy food. And then our last program is called Let Us Grow, where we're working in 16 correctional facilities across the state of Oregon. So that gives us this statewide presence, where we're working in Ontario and Pendleton and Tillamook, Salem, Coos Bay. Really the idea is providing education, so 9 months of horticulture education inside correctional facilities, and then production. So last year we did about 300,000 pounds of produce that went back into prison meals. About 95% of the produce grown in Department of Corrections property goes back in for then inmates to then have healthy food and eat healthy food. So you kind of see these tenets across our program where it's really providing access to healthy food, providing quality education, and then building positive social connections no matter where you live.
That is fantastic. How long have you all been going in the prisons in the state of Oregon?
Yeah, so it's been about a decade. So the Let Us Grow program actually was its own 501c3 for about 6 of those years. We then merged with Let Us Grow probably a little over 4 years, almost 5 years ago now, that our programs then came together.
That's fantastic. As someone who's previously incarcerated, and I've spent time in Snake River,
Mm.
Umatilla, Oregon State Penitentiary, Oregon State Correctional Institution, I can tell you that it would. I can imagine having fresh access to grown food is a big deal, and so that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, the connections too. I mean, you know this first, right? Like getting access to outdoors, getting your hands in the soil, being away and kind of being able to hear nature and the wind and other things outside of the facility is really transformative also for your mental health. And so that aspect of getting your hands back in the soil and the healingness of soil and what it can do for us, right? Like there's been lots of research around soil bacteria that there's one that mimics antidepressant medication. And so really there's this innate sense in us that we want to then have our hands in the soil, and it's a healing property, right? And so that's one aspect. Having our Let Us Grow programs in these facilities triples the amount of outdoor time that inmates get while they're incarcerated. And so again, thinking about getting outdoors, getting access to healthy food, actually tasting food that brings you back to a memory that was a positive place in your life. Those are all huge assets to the program that we're doing that might not be thought of at first of, okay, you're growing food, people are eating food, awesome. But I think if we stop and think about that, there's these very delicate, but also such touching moments that food can bring us.
Yeah.
And so being able to provide that no matter where an individual is living here in Oregon is a really important part to our work.
Were you working or what? Sorry, I should ask. What is your position at Growing Garden?
Yeah. I am the executive director of Growing Gardens.
Okay, all right. And were you part of implementing this into the prisons, or was this already in place before you came on? Or are you the founder? Or
Yeah, good question. No, I am not the founder. I have been the executive director now almost 4 years. Let Us Grow had merged with Growing Gardens. It was probably about a year or so, maybe a touch under, before I came on board. I am not new to this field around community development, around access to healthy food, around really looking at building positive social networks and leadership through agriculture. I'll just do a real quick bio. Went to Portland State and studied community development. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Central America doing agriculture and agriculture work, and ended up working in Central America for about 5 years, mainly in Nicaragua, but then also in Guatemala. And then came back to Portland and worked with Village Gardens, which is a part of Janus Youth Programs up in North Portland, basically in their community garden, looking at building leadership through agriculture up there.
yeah.
And then got my master's in public health at Oregon State, did my research in La Paz, Bolivia on the first urban garden in La Paz. And then luckily was accepted into this position, and I had some working relationship with Growing Gardens when I was at Village Gardens. And so I knew a lot about the work that was happening at Growing Gardens and had a lot of connections with them. So yeah, I am now the executive director and have been here almost 4 years.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. That's
Thanks.
great.
Yeah.
In your experience so far, when you all are helping launch gardens in the community, and you said that you follow those folks and help them for a minimum of up to 3 years, what is the variety of level of like experience with gardening? And does that depend on what kind of supports, or maybe who on your team would go help somebody? How does all that work?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think this has been an evolving process over the years. And I would say, like, especially if we're going to talk about the Home Gardens program and kind of like, what do we do and how do we do it? I'd say a really big key to this was about 5 years ago, we decided to decentralize our office. And so what does that mean? For 20 of the 25 years we've been an organization, we've been really kind of centrally located in inner Northeast Portland. And these, as you know, and most folks know, or maybe a lot of folks don't know on this, Facebook Live, but Portland has a really long history of very racist practices and policies, even as a state that was founded that way. So, and gentrification has really decimated formerly African-American neighborhoods, communities of color have been pushed further and further outside the inner core of Portland. And so 25 years ago, we were working in inner Northeast Portland. Now we're not doing that. Like we are working, in St. John's, in Coley, in outer Southeast, in Gresham, in Oregon City, in Milwaukee. And so having a centralized office, in inner Northeast Portland just didn't make sense, because then we were trying to then have folks come all the way from different outlying neighborhoods to then come to us. And so, it wasn't a respectful relationship, thinking, oh, we're the ones who have all this knowledge, when that's really not the truth. So we started then hiring program graduates. So folks who have gone through the 3-year program of our Home Gardens program, we then started hiring back on as community organizers, who then live and work and are paid to then be in their own neighborhoods, doing organizing work, getting the resources out to the communities that they know and work and live with. So that was a really big kind of shift as an organization about 5 years ago. And that, to answer your question, there's a whole wide range of what this looks like. I am not going to tell you that we teach everyone how to grow food and grow a garden, because that's not true. We work with folks who have been farmers and who have farmed their entire lives, who are coming from agrarian societies and maybe who are immigrating here for lots of different reasons. They don't need to go through like a basics 101. They're teaching us as an organization more than we are teaching them, right? Basically what we're trying to do is, if there is a product or a vegetable or fruit that they want to continue to grow that's culturally specific and appropriate to them, we're going to try to then help them grow that product here in this climate that they might not be used to. So that's kind of like one aspect. It's like there's lots of folks with vast knowledge and vast skills about growing amazing food here. Yeah. There's also folks who have never done this. Who have never put a seed in the ground, and who want to know, hey, like, how do I do this? Like, I'm really intimidated by this. I get the idea, but where do I even start? And so this idea of then connecting that individual with our Home Gardens community organizer, they basically become kind of like a mentor, and they provide a lot of support on, hey, this is what I'm doing in my garden right now. Like, what are you doing right now? And so there's a lot of interaction and one-on-one support that happens kind of beyond the typical program, that there's actually that check-in. How are things going? What's happening right now? So there's a bit of a range of folks, but we really, like I said earlier, there's no cookie cutter model to this. So we really want to work with each family, with each individual, on what they want to be successful with and what they want to learn how to do this, with the idea of becoming lifelong food producers and increasing family food security.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think about a lot of our folks it's an access issue too. Folks with not a lot of resources, and trying to work with folks and teach them ways to live healthy and to eat healthy. And sometimes it feels like access to raw food is out of reach. And I would believe that, teaching folks to plant and garden their own sources of their needs, and that opens up access, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it opens up access, it opens up information, it opens up a channel into a food system, which, for our generation, we've been kind of like pushed to the side, and you don't really know. You show up to the grocery store and you're like, all right, let's buy this. And so it provides another avenue to really kind of harken back and connect folks back to the micro level, food system that's so important. I mean, we're really seeing that now with the COVID-19 crisis, that having access and being able to know how to grow some of your own food, how to get the seeds, how to get the plants, how to nurture, seeds and plants into harvest, what to then do with that harvest, how to then cook that food. But I also think it's like that physical activity. It's that reconnection back to nature. It's getting our hands back in the soil. It's getting us physically active. It's getting us off of these screens. It's really trying to harken back to, a generation, maybe our grandparents' generation, that were really tied more to agriculture than what we have been. And so there's this kind of initial thought of, oh, great, like you help people grow gardens. I mean, that's really the starting point to our organization, is like, great, like how can we do this? And then let's talk about all these other things that are happening right now. How can we get you outside more? How can we get your kids involved in this? How can we change like your diet to have a healthy diet? Like, what can we do that kind of wraps around the other parts of getting a garden? I'd say the garden is a starting point for us. It's not an ending point for us.
Yeah. This is kind of off question, but
Yeah.
it just came to mind when you were talking about. I think you mentioned kids. Do you have any strategies to work with families that might be able to help families make vegetables seem exciting for children?
Yeah.
Topic.
Yeah.
I would have.
Yeah, so for sure. I mean, there's lots of things, and there's lots of kind of layers to this, right? Like, I mean, one, we're doing that specific thing in our youth grow program, where we're actually working with kids on getting them outside, getting them engaged, planting things, trying things, experimenting, using hypotheses to figure out, okay, what do I do with these seeds, and what happens if I plant all of these and I don't water them for a week, and I plant all of these and water all of these, and so we're making it fun, we're making it engaging. We then do a lot of tasting. So we'll do carrots, right? We'll roast carrots 4 different ways, and then we'll have the kids try them and see which one they like the best, right? So there's one really big kind of like profound statistic that if kids are engaged in the process of growing that food, they are 90% more likely to eat it. That might not mean they're going to eat a whole bowl full of, turnips, but they're going to then try it, right? And get exposed to that and think about it and provide that opportunity to then, try it and be like, you know what, I actually do like this. It also then, is mirrored hopefully at home through our home gardens program. So then families, parents are then eating that, providing that, and then having that more accessible, having it provided, at their house. But then also seeing their parents or guardians or loved ones then eating it as well. So it's another kind of like social exchange, but also celebration of that food that then starts to then adapt kids and then gets them into it as well. We'll do all kinds of things. We'll take, people have, made kale chips or all these other things, or we'll put, hot sauce on something. Like, why not? Like, it doesn't have to just be a raw, plain, mushy vegetable. Like, we can have fun with this too.
Yeah, absolutely. I eat a plant-based diet, so I get creative as I can.
Yeah.
And there's so many creative things you can do, and just also in terms of eating plant-based, it's also educating people that you can get everything you need. I believe that we can.
Yeah, for sure.
So you kind of led into this with that last question, but how do gardens affect food security for folks?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of ways, and I'd say especially now during COVID-19 and this outcry, this real big need that we're hearing from folks in community, that really how folks being scared or afraid to go to a grocery store or a farmer's market or other things, and so how do they really bring that food system and access really right to your back door, front door, patio, whatever that is. And so I think that sense of having that skill, having those seeds, having that plant right there at your fingertips is a really big stress reliever. Like, I'd say that's one of the biggest things that we've seen from our programs, is yes, access to healthy food is really important. Access to education and physical activity, all very important. But one of the main reasons that we hear folks really love the garden is it's a place for them to go and de-stress, to calm down, to think about things and plan, and actually be in a place of peace and kind of tranquility and quiet. So I think especially now in this time that's, I'd say, just very hypersensitive, and the uncertainty levels are off the charts. Having a place to then be able to go and calm and relax and actually focus some energy and time into growing something is a really important part. I'd also say, what you can grow out of a very small piece of land or even containers is pretty astonishing. I mean, most families that we work with are growing at least 300 or more pounds of food a year that they're then able to then access and eat right in their backyards. Most of the time, there's actually so much abundance that they're then sharing it with other family members or friends or even strangers, right? Because the kind of the funny anecdote is, if you plant more than one zucchini, you're going to have too many zucchini, and you're going to know your neighbors really well. And so this idea of being able to potentially have gone from a life where you haven't had enough, right? Like you haven't had enough food, or you've been relying on some kind of government assistance or food aid, to then be able to plant something and watch it grow, be successful, be able to harvest it, have enough for yourself to sustain yourself, have enough to give away and actually gift and say, I grew this, right? Like that sense of self-esteem is massive. It's totally off the charts. And then be able to then share that and potentially even give that back to the food bank, or give that to neighbors who, like maybe really need this right now. And so there's these multiple layers of, yes, it's providing this food to eat right now, but the other senses that are beyond this and the other impacts that are beyond this are really transformational, not only for the individual and the family, that neighborhood, but also that it then ripples out into our society.
Yeah, this is super exciting because, getting into these conversations and listening to you talk and be so excited, it's really kind of opening up my eyes to
Mm,
understand the impacts of being able to do this. I know that my partner, she spends a lot of time in the garden, and I don't know if I'm fully appreciating
mm,
everything that she's doing. I just see the vegetables coming in.
right.
So I think maybe I can change my thinking around that a little bit and maybe get a little bit more involved because it sounds super exciting.
Yeah, and you shared a little personal story about yourself. I'd say, for me, I grew up in a low income family that didn't have enough food to eat, and we were relying on government aid, food stamps and other things like that. And so, you know, I grew up in a garden because my mom made a choice to be like, like let's start growing our own food. And so I was lucky enough to be a part of that environment to then see the impact. Did I realize that as a 6-year-old that I would want to have this be my career and do this? No, but it was that impactful for me to then be able to see this, grow this, be out there, be engaged and really connected to my local food system, and then also learn the skills of canning and preserving to then have enough food, during the winter months. And so it's been really profound for my life, and I've seen that happen in my work and in multiple places around this world. And so I think what Growing Gardens is doing is in multiple areas, it's still continuing and pushing that envelope of, let's talk about this. There's this idea of gardening, and sometimes they're just like, oh yeah, that's like a fun hobby. But really, let's think about what this means and what this means to then have the tools and skills, knowledge and ability to then grow food for yourself. It's really not that easy. It sounds easy, but it's not. It's a lot of work and effort and planning that goes into that to then make that happen.
Um, what are some of the challenges that Growing Gardens has had to overcome or change during COVID?
Yeah, there's been lots of changes, lots of pivots. I'm sure you all are feeling this as well. I mean, I'm sure I can't imagine who isn't feeling this, right? So, yeah, I mean, all three of our programs have had to shift. Home gardens, really we were set to build about 40 home gardens in the month of April. Normally or historically, we've gotten 150, 200 volunteers that come out in April that then go and build gardens every Saturday. And, we complete it. We have a really good track record. Well, this year we can't do that, right? So our amazing home gardens manager, Antonio, was like, we can't miss this opportunity. One, it's spring. Two, we've already told these people that we've committed and we're going to get them this resource and access. And three, we really have to do this because we were starting to see the impact happening in our food system. And so the idea of us not doing this just wasn't on the table. So Antonio was like, give me a week. I'm going to come up with a plan. He came back with this, basically what we've called a micro team build. And so he went out. Antonio was the consistent, and then he had another staff member then kind of rotate through. And so there was 2 people doing builds every day of the week for the month of April, and just a touch into May. But he completed with his plan, he completed the 40 garden builds over the month of April. So having to pivot from kind of this full blown, we've gotten a lot of volunteers to All right, we have to do it all in-house. We have to do it with 1 or 2 people. How can we be creative about this? Another one has been, we've been seeing this, outpouring of interest or knowledge or wanting to get more knowledge around growing your own food and starting a garden. And so it's probably been about a month now, we launched our virtual garden consultation service. So this is open to anyone who wants to learn how to, either start a garden or continue growing or have a specific question, maybe haven't been successful in gardening and want some more tips. It's one-on-one support that we're offering, either over the phone or video call, really to anyone, no matter their economic level or background. And so it's really opening up kind of like our doors for the first time to anyone who wants to get more knowledge on this. We do ask for a donation, but that's not required. It's really, up to folks if they feel that they have, money to then donate to us, or they can just really get more knowledge on this service. And then in our Youth Grow program, really shifting, obviously schools are closed. So that's been a big shift for our programs, but they've then developed an online curriculum and they're doing videos that they're then uploading to our YouTube channel. So these are like pretty full on like curriculum educational opportunities for parents to get engaged with, for teachers to get engaged with through Google Classroom, for districts to then use and actually send out to their teachers. And then also for Instagram and folks to get more knowledge about this. So we've done that pivot in Youth Grow, but then also we've been trying to figure out how to get kids fun activities right now, especially in this time of such uncertainty. And so the team developed a kids educational garden kit, which is basically a pot, soil, seeds, a sprout journal, word searches, color sheets. And then they put together these packets and they're handing them out at local meal distribution sites through the schools. And we've handed out over 500 of these kits. And the demand and the response from the parents has been just overwhelmingly successful. So that's been a really positive thing to see. And then in our Let Us Grow program, like it's been difficult, right? Because, Oregon Department of Corrections is basically kind of has a lockout period. It's been, 45, 50 days now. So they're not allowing any educators in, but we've been able to then get resources. Now we would say before like the stay-at-home orders happened, we sent out boxes and boxes of seeds to every correctional facility to make sure that they had the resources, at least at the beginning. And now what we're doing is following up with soil and plant starts. So we got about 300 plant starts, tomato plant starts, the Coffee Creek Correctional Facility, and then Columbia River Correctional Institute just last week. And we're working with some of the Department of Corrections staff on then getting those resources into the garden and ensuring that gardens are planted right now, especially to get all of that produce grown and then back into the correctional facility kitchens for folks to eat. And then just kind of lastly, what we're trying to do, I mean, we've been an organization that has done about 10 events a year. We do a summer fundraising dinner series called Chef in My Garden. Last year, we launched a community brunch. We've had to put a lot of these events, kind of like normal events on hold or shift to virtual. And so we're going to be doing our community brunch on June 27th. It'll be virtual, be on Zoom. And then our Chef in My Garden series, we're then shifting and it's going to be called Chef in Your Garden. So we're going to partner with local restaurants to then have them build a special meal kit, work with local wineries on getting wine donated. And then folks will then get those kits, those meals, and then have the dinner in their garden and not together with a big group. And so trying to move and shift and find the target when the target's moving. Every day has been kind of like a stop, start struggle. What do we do? Do we try this? All right, let's give that a go. Let's push towards this area. But I feel that at this point, even today, a team is at the office. Again, social distancing is a big thing. We're going to be doing our plant distribution day. So again, utilizing our decentralized model of staffing, we're going to receive 7,000 plant starts.
Wow.
Those are going to get divided out, and then all 7,000 or 1,000 per community organizer is going to get those, and then the gardeners that they support are they going to then come to their house and pick up the plant starts and then go home. And so again, that's brand new for us. We've never done that before. And so how to then just kind of like mold and shift and adapt and not be defeated and not say no when things are hard.
That's fantastic. We got about a minute left here, and we would love to be able to link in this video a link to your next fundraiser. Is there anything? I mean, how does our community right now support Growing Gardens in your important work?
Yeah, so there's two really big ways to do this because, you know, the COVID-19 crisis, you know, like the immediacy right now is going to take years, right? Like it's like the long-term impacts of this is going to be, you know, 14, 16, 18, 24 months. So I think two big things, right? Like sign up and attend our virtual brunch. Like we're basically going to do a lot of storytelling. What are we doing right now? What's happening? What's been our historical context? And the theme to the brunch is building community. So how are we building community through agriculture? It's like a really big thing. So you can find out more on our website. That's on June 27th. Another really big thing, I know lots of folks are asking for donations. I'm asking like a specific thing, is that we have perennial donors. So folks who give on a monthly basis, right? So $5, $10, whatever that is. I think right now what's really important is the immediate kind of, you know, donation of funds. But then it's also that, hey, I believe in your work. I'm committed to your work. I'm going to give you, you know, and donate $5 a month, $10 a month, $15 a month for the next 3 years. So becoming a perennial donor really starts to then take that burden and stress of what this is going to look like in 12 months and 16 months and 18 months. So it's kind of that show of confidence that we believe in you. We want to be able to provide support. It might be small amounts. It might be $5 a month. It might be $10 a month, but those are huge securities for us moving forward and, you know, hopefully into the post COVID-19 crisis.
That's amazing, Jason. I'll have our development director get those links off your site, and we'll post them when we post the video.
Okay.
It's live now, but it'll stay.
Yeah. Wait, this isn't live?
But thank you for your time today, and I've learned a lot, and we appreciate all the work that you're doing and how you all interface with our organization. So
Great.
have a good rest of the day, and
You too.
And feels different than the weekday.
Yeah, right. I know, totally. Thanks again. I really appreciate the opportunity. It's nice to meet you too virtually.
All right, Jason, you take care.
You too.